or under, please stand. So we have about 6 or 7. Okay, please be seated. For those of you that are 75 and over, please stand. So there's the two ends of the bell-shaped curve. Look what we're holding up. Not only do we have that contrast, we have speakers that one is a Democrat and one is a Republican. And our first speaker this morning is a Republican, Ryan Quarles. That's right pronunciation.
It's what precedes a duel.
Okay. He is a Republican Kentucky State Representative from Scott County, Kentucky, born and raised in Scott County. He is he's a native of Georgetown, where he graduated valedictorian and class president at Scott County High School in 2002. He's younger than my youngest child. While working on the family farm, he went on to complete a triple major undergraduate and 2 master degrees from the nearby University of Kentucky in under 4 years. His triple major was in agricultural economics, public service and leadership, and political science, and he graduated with honors in 2005. He took as many as 27 credit hours per semester and was on the dean's list each semester. He was one of the nation's 25 Zuckerman Fellows, and he was awarded a full ride scholarship to Harvard University, where he completed a Master of Education in 2009. I could read more about this young man in these 2 pages. He's accomplished quite a bit. In 2009, he announced he would run for the Kentucky House of Representatives. In 2010, he won the Republican contest. And in May of 2010, November 2010, he won and beat Charlie Hoffman, and was appointed to the Kentucky House of Representatives committees on agriculture and small business and banking and insurance and education. Folks, this man is an intelligent young man. I can tell because he chose to be a Republican.
Well, after an introduction like that, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to say. But thank you very much for the kind and warm introduction. Glad to be up here and share the podium with Governor Carroll. We work as a team in Frankfort, consult often, and we're both excited to represent Owen County as part of the redistricting process from this past fall. But pleasure to be here this morning to attend the Chamber Breakfast, or as Frank likes to refer to it as, what Frankfort has done to you lately breakfast. And first off, I must say, Royce Adams, please stand up. I think we all owe you a debt of gratitude. The opportunity when I was first elected to serve with Royce, and he had one of the prime seats on the floor, the very first one, near the rear entrance. That way, you close to the door, so you can escape when you needed to. But he was always there with a smile on his face and always gave me advice along the way, particularly for refreshments. I appreciate your service and wish you the best. Look forward to our continued relationship. I see that we have a lot of candidates. When I was driving in today, I saw a lot of signs are popping up like dandelions out there. And I just want to wish everyone the best of luck over the next couple of weeks. I'm a farm kid. For those of you not familiar with my background, I grew up working in the back. One of my first jobs, worked for $1 an hour, following a 1-row setter. And we farmed and grew up on Owen Electric, a farm powered by Owen Electric. And that's where I basically developed my outlook on life. Very family oriented. It was just my mom, dad, my brother, and I, and we worked every single day. And I believe in the value of a hard-earned dollar and a long day's worth of work. And that's the work ethic that I try to bring to Frankfort. And as you all know, the circus just left town. General Assembly finished up on time at exactly midnight on April 15th, tax day. And there are over 800 bills filed this year. And you know, we just had a Kentucky Derby this past week. The General Assembly is kind of like the Kentucky Derby. There's a lot of buildup. There's a lot of people talking about the expectations. But you keep waiting around. You keep waiting and waiting and waiting for horses to get to the gate. And by the time the race actually begins, the session is halfway over. Now there's some problems with that. I think there's a lot of wasted time in Frankfurt. But it's always a rush towards the end. And of that 800 bills, a little over 100 passed. And I was proud to say I was able to author 2 of those bills. And I was one of only 4 of those outnumbered Republicans to get something passed, get 2 bills passed this past session. And I did it because I don't put an R or a D next to somebody's name. That's the last thing I look at. If you want to get something done, in my experience, that you have to put the partisanship aside. There are those in Frankfurt who want to toe the party line. That's not my leadership style. If you want to see what partisanship does to a political process, look at Washington, D.C. right now. They're completely dysfunctional. Fortunately, Frankfurt hasn't fallen off that cliff yet, although I think there has been efforts by some to bring more partisanship there, and I think that's the wrong road to go down. And I think that with a little bit of the new leadership and management on both sides of the aisle, in both chambers, the General Assembly has performed better. And in fact, the fact that we don't have a special session for the first time in a while is a manifestation that people are getting along. And we don't need people throwing harpoons or grenades at each other. We need to have dialogue. They are chambers built upon debate and dialogue, and that's the way it should work. You know, one of the biggest pieces of the biggest piece of public policy that any legislative body can enact is a budget. And for Kentucky, we just passed a 2-year biennial budget of over $20 billion. And that sounds like a lot. But when you start adding up our fixed costs in areas of government where the costs are only continue to go up, it's just not a whole lot of money. And guess what? Christmas comes twice in Frankfurt. You have the real Christmas in December, and then you have everyone bringing their wish list to you, asking for what they want. And there's only a limited amount of resources, as you know. And so it's very tough, particularly for those in leadership capacities in Frankfurt, to sort out what gets funded and where we need to prioritize. I'm proud to report that for this budget, education won big, particularly K-12 education. They got almost everything they asked for. Close to $200 million in additional funding over the next 2 years. Now, some say that's not enough, and I agree. There are areas where we can always improve upon. But our school systems have been stagnant in funding for since 2008 or so. And we needed to increase the seat formula, and both the senator and I were proud to put education first. Not only that, but it also provides for modest salary increases for teachers, administrators, and also for state workers. But one part of the budget that is not really being talked about that much is funding the pension. As we all know, Kentucky has one of the worst funded pensions in the United States. In fact, it's caused our bond rating to continue to go down. There's only 2 other states that have worse bond ratings than Kentucky. That's California and Illinois. And I don't think that a couple of those we should be looking at as role models when it comes to fiscal management. And the biggest reason is that we have a large unfunded pension liability. Now, we did go through a few reforms last year, but what the most important piece of the puzzle right now is for the General Assembly to adopt fiscal discipline over the next 20 to 25 years and live up to the promises we made to our hardworking state employees, hardworking teachers, hardworking educators, and fund the pension. This budget does that. It fully funds the ARP. And it passed the General Assemblies. They have not put that as a priority, and that's the reason why, one of the various reasons why we're in the shape we're in right now. So I was proud to say we did that. We also have $1.3 billion dedicated towards health insurance for our local school district employees as well. And on the topic of education, it's not just about K-12. My background is in education. I was fortunate enough to be able to become a Kentucky Wildcat. It's about developing a pipeline between preschool through college. And so a lot of times you have to stop looking at it in a dichotomy between higher ed and K-12. You got to look at it as a seamless pipeline. And Owen County is on the verge of really getting a few more necessary tools in the toolbox to help better educate and set up career-ready students. The fact that the community and technical colleges will now be able to build one project in each one of their, I think there's 16 community technical colleges, each one of them will build a campus. We're going to have one in Carrollton, JCTC. We'll also have one in Georgetown that focuses on advanced manufacturing as well. But we also provided $250,000, as Rob and I have talked about, for the Regional Collaborative Career Academy, which I think that Owen County can benefit greatly from. It'd be one of 5 counties that will participate in this and help educate our best and brightest and get them to become career ready. The farming community, again, being a farm kid, that's a very big issue for me. And we are fortunate, Kentucky's fortunate to receive quite a bit from the master settlement here, the largest lawsuit in U.S. history back in 1998. And due to the forward thinking of legislators, like Royce, who supported House Bill 611, which mandated that half of those funds go back to agriculture diversification efforts. And each time the General Assembly meets in Frankfurt, they see this pot of money hanging out there, and they say, you know, it would be awfully tempting to take money out of that. But again, proud to report that those funds will remain dedicated for agriculture, and for a county like Owen, which just like rural Scott County, agriculture is a major part of our industry, and we're fortunate to have those protections in place. And in fact, I know there's been some discussion about the recent lawsuits. Not to get too technical, but Kentucky stands to lose a lot of tobacco settlement money. And that doesn't just affect agriculture; it also affects early childhood development and also healthcare programs across the state due to the 2003 court ruling. We're going to be monitoring that situation closely. We also put $87 million back into the Budget Reserve Trust Fund for a rainy day, which I'm glad we did that because our state revenues again fell this past month. So you always got to be ready for the flexibility. And although I've highlighted some of the things we've done well in this budget, in this past General Assembly, there's a few things that were not accomplished that I wish had gotten done. And one of those relates to our tax code. Everybody knows, whether they're Republican or Democrat, that our tax code is inadequate right now. In fact, it's antiquated. It's based on a 1950s model of Kentucky economy based on agriculture and manufacturing. The world has changed. You just have to drive around central Kentucky to see the amount of FDI, foreign direct investment, in our community right now. And we need a tax code that reflects the modern economy. Now the problem is nobody knows exactly how that needs to be set up. And despite 20 years of studies, 10 separate studies over 20 years, the General Assembly still failed to act on revising the tax code. And that's something that could help not only protect the jobs we have, but also bring new jobs here. And that's one reason why a lot of businesses don't even look at Kentucky when they look towards expanding to the south because of our tax code. We've got to fix that. Another sore spot, I mentioned this in the paper last week, is that the Kentucky House of Representatives failed to pass the heroin bill, Senate Bill 5. Senator Carroll voted for this bill. It's a good piece of legislation. I supported it in committee. The Kentucky Senate passed it, I think, either the first or second week of session. It came over to the House, and leadership sat on it for 3 months and did nothing. Kentucky has an epidemic of people ODing on heroin right now, and any community that's connected to I-75 whatsoever is not only seeing this, but it's seeing it proliferate right now. We've had almost 30 deaths this year alone since that bill was introduced, and the General Assembly, the Kentucky House, failed to even bring it up before a vote. In fact, they waited until 11:45 p.m. on the last day to even bring it up for consideration. By that time, they already had 20-some amendments attached to it. So there's really a lack of effort towards addressing the drug epidemic in Kentucky. And I just found that reprehensible. Again, the Kentucky House killed pro-life legislation for 8 years in a row. I'm proud to be pro-life, and that's something that is just unacceptable. And I'll tell you why. It's not just because of the issue. It's because probably 80-some legislators, probably 85 out of the 100 in the House, support that legislation. The leadership kills it every year because they want to protect their liberal constituency in Louisville and that sort of thing. And I think that's just wrong. Whenever there's a bill that has over a majority of the members in support of it, I think that there needs to be a rule in our rule book that allows there to be a straight up or down vote, one way or the other. And I think that's good because there's plenty of pieces of legislation that has the critical mass behind it, support to pass, but yet those in leadership kill the bill. Another bill that would have brought thousands of jobs to Kentucky immediately was vetoed by the governor. That's P3, Public-Private Partnership. Think about all the infrastructure projects out there that communities want, both on the state and local level, but there's no funding for it. That is, since 2008, that has been a recurring story. Is that there's things we want, there's things that communities need, we just don't have money to do it. P3 allows for creative financing arrangement between private entities and the local or state government, which would help pump infrastructure dollars into the community and truly make shovel-ready projects available in communities. And just think about communities that need updated water lines. This legislation would have done it. And it was killed, and I think that's definitely going to come back. Over 35 states already have this legislation. It passed overwhelmingly by both the Senate, passed overwhelmingly by the House, the governor vetoed it, and it was the #1 jobs bill in the General Assembly this year, and it's not going to happen. I was really disappointed with that one. Another one is also regulatory reform. Kentucky, just like Washington, D.C., is starting to see proliferation of regulations, which hinders business, and we think that there needs to be a little bit more of a streamlined process when it comes to the promulgation of regulations. And we also see just some wacky bills that went further along the process than anyone should have expected. The only thing to do is ask Owen Electric about PSC bills, changing how commissioners are chosen instead of them being appointed, making them a full-blown political race. And that's just, it's not good policy for the state. There's also a bill Casey about that would have automatically raised workers' comp rates dramatically. And this was a bill that was filed by the trial lawyers, and it would have just made it more expensive for everyone to do business and to build structures. There's also some wacky bills that would have changed Kentucky off the Eastern time zone. Instead of having to split, that didn't get very far. There's also a bill filed in the House that would have required everyone to register a gun. I just don't think that's going to go too well. I was in Owenton this past weekend with some friends, flew in from out of state, and they were very impressed and overwhelmed by the beauty of Owen County. We ate here, Billy, then we went and shotguns over at Elk Creek, and I think that it was nice to have a pair of fresh eyes drive to this community who have never been to Kentucky before. And I think our asset here is the beauty and the potential for tourism. And I think we can take a regional approach in the community. We can help build and strengthen Owen County right now. One last thing I'd like to mention is roads. When I got elected, I never thought to spend so much time on roads and potholes and guardrails. But as part of the job, we had over $3 million put in the budget to go ahead and start the next phase of Kentucky 22 over 2015 and 2016. We're going to be using that money to purchase right-of-way, utilities, and start construction. And then in 17, we have over $23.5 million dedicated towards finishing construction up until 845. And then long-term, we'll finish it out with another $31 million to the Grant County line. So that's the status of Kentucky 22. If you need more details on that, just let me know. We'll have a business cards with me, and we'd be happy to get back to you as well. On the road fund, we made sure that we kept 22.2% of road fund dollars dedicated towards rural roads, which is essential for Owen County and rural Scott County as well. And so again, if you have any questions on roads, just feel free to contact me. I know Governor Carroll wants to put his 2 cents in here, and I think what we'll do is we'll take questions after this presentation. But I just want to say that it's an honor to represent you all. My door is always open. I have my cards with me. Just email me. I'll get back to you. and I want to earn your trust. We want to earn your trust. So, without further ado, the great introduction of Senator Quarles.
You better say it starts with a
Last night while eating dinner, my wife was on the other side of the table. She'd already had dinner. She was looking at her laptop. I said, "Would you Google Julian Carroll for me?" She did. I said, "Well, would you print it out?" She said, "Well, it's 9 pages." I said, "So?" She said, "Well, that's a lot of paper and ink." I said, "Well, he's worth it. He's earned it."
But please don't read it.
Amen.
First introduce me, I'm ready.
He's not getting younger.
He and his family moved to Heath, Kentucky. Governor Carroll went to school in Heath, Kentucky, and he graduated from Heath High School as a salutatorian and a student body president. He later married and had 4 children, and there's something unique about the last child, the daughter, Ellie. She was the only person born in the 20th century while her parents resided in the Kentucky governor's mansion. If you watched KBT on Monday night, you would have seen that. I think it was Diane Sawyer that narrated that. And his name came up. I misunderstood it at first. I thought she said Governor Carroll had the only child born in the mansion. But it was his wife. He earned his associate art degree from Paducah Junior College. He later went on to UK and got a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science and then a Bachelor of Law degree. Is that correct? I'm just hitting the highlights here on these 9 pages.
You got another 30 seconds.
He's best known as when he was Speaker of the House of breaking the gallows. The House had gotten in pretty bad shape. People were bringing their lunches in and eating. They were just family members coming in and out, a lot of disorder, and he brought order back to the House. He actually called attention on his first day. He busted a gavel, and people quietened down, and he cleaned house, to say. Not only that, he has a lot of other things under his belt. I can only touch on a few of them, but he became governor, and he is now our senator. Let's welcome Senator Julian Carroll.
I appreciate that. Enough said about me. Let me tell you, though, one little thing that you might need to know is that we decided, of course, leaving the governor's office in 19 well, I became lieutenant governor in 71, so we actually moved to Frankfort, of course, and occupied the lieutenant governor's mansion, which some reason or other, somebody don't let lieutenant governors do that anymore. Quite frankly, I think they should, but they don't. I don't run that show anymore. And then I left the governor's office in December of 1979 to start practicing law. I looked at my client base, and most of my clients had all their problems in Frankfort. Well, now my kids were from Frankfort. My kids married in Frankfort. My grandkids were in Frankfort. I bought a farm in Frankfort. So we just decided to stay in Frankfort, and we've enjoyed it immensely. I guess one of my biggest disappointments 2 years ago is when I got Owen County for a while, then the court took it away from me. And so we went 2 more years, and of course we got our current legislative pattern, which will take effect really in the next session. So Brian's re-election and my current, we will be officially your state representatives and senator come January. But in the meantime, Brian has pretty well covered the General Assembly as to what happened. I want to take a little bit different approach in my comments to you. I want to talk about some major areas in which I have a very, very deep concern. I really have concentrated early in '04, and by the way, I want to stop a moment there and introduce to you David Cobb, who's seated with me. People get amazed at what I tell them about David in a way, and quite frankly, I'm amazed too. David is 100% volunteer on my staff. He's with me every day. He travels with me. He goes to the office for me every day. Opens all my emails every day and all my mail every day. There's the only way I can't keep up with if you didn't. I tell people that they ask me, someone says, well, Yosemite's finally over, you slow down. No, not when you represent state employees and retirees in Franklin and Owen and Gallatin and Woodford and Anderson County. You represent them every day. And we answer emails every day. We deal with mail every day. And we deal with issues every day. And so we keep quite busy. Fortunately for me, I live 7 minutes from the Capitol building. And not only that, I'm listed in the local phone directory. And so people call me at home, which is, all of us are used to that, I guess, when you're in public office. And certainly I've always been used to it. A lot of people know my cell phone number. I don't normally just give it out to everybody, because if everybody called me on my cell phone, I'd never be able to get anything done. But I do carry it with me at all times. I have it on me at the moment. Come to think of it, I haven't turned it down, but hopefully it won't ring while I'm here. But I really want to deal with 2 or 3 major issues. I want to talk first of all about the Kentucky General Assembly as a total legislative body. We are quite fortunate over in the state Senate that we have a new president, and quite candidly, David Williams has left town. And I'll be very honest with you, without being too critical, and I don't mean this from a political perspective, Robert Stivers is a great leader. He's done a good job. We have now a good relationship between our Democratic and Senate leadership, Republican leadership in the Senate, and we were able to get a little bit more done than we have in the past working together like that. I really want to then move from that issue. I'm going to move pretty quickly because I want to move on for you. I want to specifically, though, talk about 2 other major areas. One of which is the dire situation in our state budget. We've cut $1.5 billion out of state spending over the last 6 years. And that's a lot of money taken out of the state budget. And where's it come from? Unfortunately, a lot of it's come from education. And the fact that, as mentioned by Ryan, the fact that we haven't done some of the things that we need to do in education. And I can give you one example of an area that I've been working on for most of my political career in Frankfurt. That's the high school dropout problem. I worked on it extensively when I was in the executive office, and I've continued to work on it. When I left Frankfurt in 1979, the dropout problem in Kentucky was an average of 35% of our classes. Well, when I got back in the General Assembly in 2004, I, of course, immediately asked, I'm interested in knowing then, what is our dropout rate today? And I was quickly told, well, it's now 5%. And I don't know why, but I got suspicious immediately when they told me it dropped from 35 to 5%. And I said, well, tell me, what do you describe as a dropout? Well, the education department said, well, it's somebody that's a senior that doesn't graduate. I said, well, you've missed the point then. Because at least the way we used to measure it is whether a 9th grader ends up becoming a graduate. That was 35% when I left office, and when I got them to refigure it, guess what it is today? 32%. We've really not improved our dropout rate over the last 30 years. Now I'm going to tell you where they are and how foolish it is that we've let it happen. They're in prison. You know 75% of our prison population are high school dropouts. And so the first line that I use in a speech when I go to a high school, I say, do you know why we build penitentiaries in Kentucky? And of course the students look at me dumbfounded. Why in the world would you ask us that question? I said, you better listen to this answer, because you need to hear it. It's to hold those of you who don't graduate from high school. And I have all kinds of parents that thank me for getting the attention of some of their children in that kind of comment. Because we put an enormous amount of new dollars into prisons these days. And just give you a quick example to follow this through quickly. The prison population when I left office in 1979 was 23,000 individuals. We now have 32,000 prisoners in Kentucky. You know, most of them are the result of drugs, though. To be very candid with you. We tried to do a little something about it by changing the law some, and quite frankly, in changing the law, we could very well have made a mistake when we came down to try to be a little more lenient in the people we sent to the prison over marijuana, for example. And we allowed that to be an offense for which you could write a ticket to a police officer, rather than making an arrest, putting them in jail, letting them out of jail, and then letting them off for a slap on the wrist. Some of them maybe end up going to the penitentiary after several other offenses. But when we cut back on the penalties for marijuana, the result was now heroin is less costly. And now heroin is the drug of choice. And I'm going to tell you, your sheriff has told me that it is a terrible problem right here in Owen County. And I'll tell you, it's an equally terrible problem in Franklin County. And as mentioned, it's the traffic coming out of Cincinnati and people coming off of 75 and finding places where they can get into, and they give you kids a few doses first. Doesn't cost anything until you get in debt to them. And then you got to start stealing or paying them, one or the other. If you don't, they'll beat you up. If they don't beat you up, they'll knife you. If they don't like you particularly, they'll kill you. Take you off somewhere and leave you in a ditch. I mean, the drug trafficking is vicious. And I'm going to tell you, it is so vitally important to me personally and my family over in Franklin County that I told this individual who is now our sheriff 4 years ago, I said, if you'll run for sheriff, I'll manage your campaign. And I did. And he became elected. I don't even seen the Frankfurt paper much or not, but man, we are after them, and we've got the resources there to do it. Now, we've doubled our police force down there to do it, but we are after them, and it takes, I would say this for your police officers. They've got an enormous problem with the resources they've got with which to get it done. But yes, it was a mistake for us not to pass the bill dealing with heroin in the General Assembly. And it was an important issue that we did not get to. The other area that I really want to talk to you about, though, are roads. I've traveled Owen County extensively through the years, and I'll tell you, I'm really shocked somewhat that we haven't done a better job of looking after a lot of our county roads and our state roads, particularly for which the state's responsible. But again, we don't have money. And again, I'll tell you, and it's an area that some people might say, well, General Assembly did the right thing. General Assembly did not step up to the barrel and make the difficult task of creating a few more dollars for the road funds, which you'd have gotten in your county. They disallowed the automatic increase. I think it was not more than 3 cents. It's like 2.5 cents a gallon. That would have increased several $1 million for the road fund that have gone back to our counties and gone to the state for improving roads. And of course, it gets back to this old theory, we're not going to raise any taxes. And I know that sounds good, but if you figure out some way at home to keep your bills from going up, and to keep your way of paying your bills at home, that's the same problem we have in state government. You have a light bill, it's going up, unfortunately. You have a sewer bill, it's going up. Food bill, it's going up. Well, state bills go up too. And unfortunately, we have to have more money in state government to do things. Yet the attitude is nobody votes for any tax increases at all. Because you can't get reelected if you do. Well, let me tell you, and I say it somewhat jokingly at times, Royce, but I mean it sincerely. I have the liberty of being where I am at my stage in life. The worst thing you can do to me is send me to the farm. You know, we have 110 acres. We have 4 homes on the farm. And quite frankly, I'm the farm mechanic. I'm the farm electrician. I'm the farm carpenter. I'm whatever needs to be done. My son called me and he needed a new lock put on his door and a new lock put on his shop. I did both of them yesterday. My daughter-in-law called me. She needed a new plug-in for her microwave. I wired her a new plug-in for her microwave. Can I do that? Certainly I can do it. I'm a good electrician. I'm a good carpenter. Well, I've had a little experience of the year with all of it, and I enjoy doing it, but I quite candidly let a group of citizens down in Frankfort talk me into getting back in the General Assembly after I was gone from public office for 20 years. And David and my staff tells me don't do this, but I'm going to do it anyhow. I'm 83 years old.
Don't do it.
And some of you say, well, why don't you quit and go home? Well, I'd like to, but my friends around me say, no, you can't do it. You can't do it. You know too much and you're too helpful to go home. Well, I live in Frankfort. It's not that terribly inconvenient. It keeps me busy and keeps me occupied. And quite frankly, I feel good. I guess I'm as alert, some people say I'm as alert as I've ever been. I don't know about that. I often get asked, and I'll tell everybody this at once, people say these days, well, how are you doing? And I've got a phrase that I use these days. I say I just get better looking every day. Well, I get interesting comments in response to that, but at least it engages us in a conversation and we have a lot of fun together. Yes, if you have some questions, I think it's time to take it. We've taken enough of your time. And Ryan, come on back up here if you like. If you don't have anything to say, ask, we'll go back and sit down in a hurry. That's one way to get rid of us in a hurry. But go to it. Do you have anybody have a question? Have we satisfied you totally? Answered all your questions? Ryan, we can sit down.
They rehearsed last night.
Does anybody really have any questions for them that you'd like to ask? And I'm sure they'll be around for a few minutes right afterwards if you'd like it to be more of a personal question. So we want to thank both of you for coming and for the great entertainment. I love your UK boots. If you did not see Ryan's boots, he needs to kick his foot out. He has UK boots on. They're cool. All right. Do we have a report from the county? I don't see anybody.
I can give small report.
Oh, okay, Casey.
We are in the process of finishing up the road paving, county roads, left over from last year that we didn't get completed, and planning for this coming year's paving. And we spent the last 2 months working on the budget. It was not easy, but we did balance it. We had to make some tough decisions, but we got it done. And just want to remind everybody about the Judges Cookout, which was mentioned earlier at Farmers Market Friday. Come out. It's a great fundraiser for the Relay for Life. Love to see you there.
Okay. And that cookout is not at the courthouse square where it used to be. Remember, it's at Farmers Market behind Farm Bureau.
For those that can't come, I think they can have calling, and
Okay.
they'll deliver.
So call the judge's office?
There was a number posted on the, I think on the flyers that went around,
Okay.
but yeah, call the judge's
right. All right, is there anyone that wants to give us a report from the city? City council this time. Okay. Let's see, I've got a couple of things. Judy has already mentioned her 100th celebration, which is tonight from 6 to 9. So please make sure that you come out with that. Farmers Market is from 10 to 1 tomorrow. Arts in the Park is Saturday, this Saturday, May 10th, the day before Mother's Day. If you've forgotten Mother's Day, come out Saturday. You will get some great things for your mom. They're going to have art, music, and food. It's rain or shine. Remember, it's at the fairgrounds. So they have the pavilion. They have the two exhibit buildings. So